And welcome to the AVForums podcast for the 4th of March 2015. Time's just running away, gentlemen. It's March already. Where's the year gone? Assistant Editor Steve Withers.
You want me to answer that question?
Now that was a Spock answer.
Of all the souls I've ever known, this was the most
human.
That was really good.
Funny thing is, I've just watched Stewie do that in.
That's what I was thinking of.
With Rupert's funeral. Anyway, news editor Mark Hodgkinson.
Are you out of your Vulcan mind?
Games editor Mark Botwright.
Remember.
And audio reviewer Ed Selley.
As you are so fond of observing, Doctor, I am not human.
If you haven't already picked up, and we're not laughing at his death. In fact, I'm really quite sad. I think, as far as actors' deaths go, this one kind of left a really big lump in my throat. It did hurt because Spock, I was a nerd before it was trendy and hipster to be a nerd. I guess we all were on this podcast. Big sci-fi fans. I'm not going to put words in other people's mouths, but in terms of what he meant to me, I grew up watching the original Star Trek. The films were absolutely brilliant. The new films just haven't been able to capture that camaraderie between the three main characters, Spock being one of them. Leonard Nimoy, he was a laugh a minute. The guy just made me laugh, and he owned that character. And I don't think there's many actors nowadays who can say that they owned a character and nobody else could really play him.
So much to the point that really that's pretty much, even though he's had a long and varied career, that's largely he's going to be remembered for being Spock. I love the way that originally his autobiography was titled "I Am Not Spock." And about 20 years later, he did a revised version of the autobiography and retitled it "I Am Spock." Yeah, because pretty much that is what he's going to be remembered for.
And then in The Simpsons, there's "I am also McCoy."
But he's had a long and varied career. Obviously, he's been in plenty of other things. Memorably, from my perspective, he was in Philip Kaufman's remake of the Invasion of Body Snatchers in '78. And of course, he had a very successful career as a director as well. Not forgetting he directed Star Trek 3 and 4 and 3 Men and a Baby. And
the one thing I just found out recently that I didn't know was he was very big with photography as well, majored in photography. And I didn't know that till I read his obituary the other day.
And lest we forget that, like the great Bill Shatner, he was also a singer.
Yeah, I wasn't going to bring up that. There is a video which he did. Was it 2 years ago?
Advert
for Audi.
Audi, yeah.
It was for Audi, and it was with I keep forgetting his name. Zachary Swinton, yeah. And it's really, really funny. It shows that he's got a real sense of humour, and he sings Bilbo in it as well.
I think they actually got him to do one of the end songs in the Hobbit movies, frankly. I think they missed an opportunity there, didn't they? And that was an obvious thing to do, wasn't it? Better than... Who did they get to do them? Oh, bloody Ed Sheeran, wasn't it? Anything better than Ed Sheeran.
I've got to say, I genuinely choked up. I don't know about you, Steve, but that as it was breaking on Twitter, I was thinking, no, don't be true, please, because that's not fair. Spock's not supposed to die.
I suppose he was 83, not a bad innings.
I did on Twitter. I liked the feed that came back. Don't worry, he's only dead in this timeline.
Yeah, or more to the point, he died in Star Trek 2 and then came back in Star Trek 3. So who knows? Maybe in a couple of years he'll reappear. Probably not, though.
No, probably not.
Don't want to get anyone's hopes up out there. I think he really is genuinely dead.
I also thought that the cause of death was really unfortunate as well. I mean, he gave up smoking 30 years ago, but seemingly that was the cause of
damage was done, Phil.
Yeah.
Damage was done. I'm not mentioning
names. So it's just doing an actual tie-in to our field of work, the semi-immortal Leonard Nimoy infomercial for the Magnavision Laserdisc player. It's very much a piece of its time.
Write tunes like this anymore.
That sounds like the tune
don't,
for the
they really don't.
Telly Savalas doing his thing about Birmingham.
Well, I think probably the same thing.
Yeah, it probably is the same thing. Yeah, does he appear at any point?
Yes, he does.
I thought grandson was going to start.
Do you think we'll get sued for playing this music?
No idea.
I
He
can't
is
imagine
sporting
anyone cares anymore.
a truly magnificent mustache as well in this piece.
It's not coming on the screen. I'm going to fast forward it a bit so we can see.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yes, I can understand you. I'm Leonard Nimoy. Interesting. A record player that produces beautiful sound and pictures through my TV. What is it called? Ah, Magnavision. Gourmet video for people who know and love video. I see. The system consists of this Magnavision optical video disc player, a LaserVision video disc, and my TV.
It's a very efficient language. Isn't it?
This single wire.
So who's talking
By connecting this wire to the antenna input on the TV set, the player becomes operable.
It's a little rock that just lights up when it's speaking. I mean, there's no expense.
They did some really good drugs in the 70s, didn't they? They really had some top drawer shit.
I mean, you're looking here, no expense spent at all.
You look at this, and you look at the Star Wars Holiday Special, and you're thinking they were off their f***ing nuts, weren't they?
They were. I think we need to move it on, but yes.
But I do hope that you end up using that as the a still from that as our podcast cover.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty much.
I think we should remember him as he would want us to remember him, doing a lowly paid advert for something that's long since gone.
Yeah.
I think we've captured the somber mood. I do own the Spaced Out album, though.
What I love about YouTube is the way, like, looking at this, and I'm being led astray by stuff on the other side, such as Laserdisc versus Blu-ray version of Robocop. I might check that out later. Leonard Nimoy does a William Shatner impression on a Hero Complex. I think I'll check that out later. I mean, there's a good half an hour gone there immediately, isn't it, really? It's a dangerous thing, the internet.
Anyway, anybody else want to pay tribute?
He was.
I think that Magnavision video is something or other.
That says it all.
He was very good in an episode of Columbo, though. I know it sounds like faint praise.
In The Man from U.N.C.L.E. as well. He was
Yeah.
I mean, it was one of those things. Unfortunately, he owned an iconic character, and it didn't really matter whatever else he did. As we've already said, that's what he's forever associated with. But it's undoubtedly clear that he could do all manner of things, and as you say, there's some humour to it. I mean, that Futurama episode with the Star Trek cast is, he's great in that. There's, considering it's all obviously voice work, and it's still quite amusing.
He was a man who could take the mickey out of himself, who could laugh at himself, genuinely laugh at himself, and he understood the value in that, because he was in Family Guy, he was in quite a few of the animated stuff, but he also did, like I say, these commercials and infomercials where he was just genuinely taking the mickey out of himself.
And the other, I have to say, a rare moment of the programme actually being funny, the Big Bang Theory episode with the Spock transporter toy, and he's just voicing that little action figure, that's genuinely amusing. I mean, aided by some successful posing of said action figure, but that's a very, very funny sequence.
So anyway, Nimoy out.
Yes, and although we have had a laugh there, it is genuinely, sad news.
I always had a soft spot for Captain Kirk myself, for William Shatner. He's a rubbish actor, but that's what the rest of the cast thought.
Yeah, I can see that.
But you see, the thing is, though, they genuinely did have a rapport between the three of them, Bones, him, and Spock, and that came across on screen. It really did. They had a really good chemistry in the movies.
Guts off camera.
Sorry?
I thought they hated each other's guts off camera.
Well, maybe that was the case, but on screen certainly, and that's one of the that's the enjoyment I get out of watching the old Star Trek movies is that camaraderie, especially number 4. I think that's one of my favourite Trek movies, and it takes place on Earth. But it's just they're out of their own time and stuff, and it gives the characters a good chance to play off each other, and it's really funny. And one of the movies I'll always go to that, and Wrath of Khan.
Wrath of Khan's my favourite because it's got some great overacting on the part of Ricardo Montalban. Spock gets a noble death, saving the ship,
and Shatner. Khan.
And Shatner gets to do that. So what more could you possibly want from a film?
God, that woman down the stairs is going to think I'm mad.
I love the way there's an optimistic future tense in that.
Right, okay. As you can tell, Hodge is back this week. So, Hodge, you have the honours of the competitions. On you go.
Suspected it might do. Right, okay. First up, we have, courtesy of Scan Computers, a Thermalake Core X9 PC case, which is a stackable cube PC case. Looks quite nice. It's worth £140. And that one is open for a while yet. He says, rushing to his notes.
No cash alternative.
No cash alternative is on offer. And that one closes 31st of March for that. And then we have...
Mark, I think you should do it in a bully voice, like, here's what you would have won.
I don't do that one. Then we have 2 pairs of Sound Magic P30S headphones. The closing date for that is 20th of April. I'm not sure of the cash value. What are they, Ed? 60 quid or something?
70 quid a pop.
Any good?
Yes, very much so.
There you go. And that wraps up the competitions for this week.
Thank you very much, Mark. Oh, look what, you're next on the running order again, so we're going to keep with your dulcet tones. World Mobile Congress happened on Sunday at the time of recording this podcast. We're not a very big mobile phone site, but lots of AV mentioned in there, and some nifty furniture as well from IKEA.
That was the best thing. Yeah, Samsung and IKEA have teamed up to produce furniture that has wireless charging capability built in. So you can just leave, this is only applicable to their latest flagship models, which are the S6 and S6 Edge, which have the wireless capability built in. So you could just leave it hanging around on your IKEA furniture and pick it up and it's charged. They also charge very, very fast. So I think it takes something like 10 minutes to give you 4 hours of charge, and it can be fully done in about half an hour, I think. So that looks pretty swanky. The design of the S6 Edge is very nice. It's curved on both sides. OLED screen, 5.1-inch OLED screen, ridiculously fast processing power.
Do you mean it's curved on both sides?
I mean, it's curved on both sides. It's not flat on either side, it's curved. The front and back is curved.
So, like,
I just took
contoured into your hand, so it fits. Presumably, so it fits nicely.
I just thought that was a given. Sorry.
Oh, it's the first ever. Curved.
Really?
Yeah, it's curved on both sides.
I thought LG had done one.
No, curved on one side. That was flat on the back.
Was it?
So also Samsung say, I don't know, take it with them. Yes, apparently so. I think it looks really smart, the S6 Edge. No doubt it'll be very expensive. All the usual Samsung gizmos, it'll do just about anything.
Prices have just popped up. €600 for
the Edge.
Yeah, 600 and then €800 for the.
For a telephone,
you
for a
are
mobile
having
phone.
a giraffe.
Bloody
no,
hell.
that's just popped up on Twitter, and it's from somebody at the conference.
Right, so you could either buy one of them or a decent telly. I'll leave that up to you. But that's a lot of money for a phone, however good it is. Of course, it'll be available cheaper on contract. But yeah, that's an awful lot of money. But also, Samsung have launched Samsung Pay, which is very much like Apple Pay, the service that they announced at their last event, which will mean you can do local transactions with just using your phone. Not sure how secure it is, but they say it's more agnostic than Apple's system, so it'll be more widespread on launch. That's a US deal only. I don't know whether we will get that over here. I guess we'll see how successfully it goes in the States. What else did they have? They showed a bit more of their VR headset technology, just a reduction in size, basically increased processing power. This is the Oculus-based thing. Yeah, it all looks good. Nothing particularly staggering. I do like the wireless charging idea more than anything else. There is also a wireless charging pad that's just sold as a separate if you don't want to commit to buying some furniture to charge your phone. As a roundup for everyone else, I really like the look of Sony's new Xperia Z4 tablet. It's got the same Qualcomm Snapdragon 810 as the the new Galaxies. So it will be lightning fast processing, a really high res screen. I think it's 2560 by 1600 pixels, so it'll be beautifully crisp. IPS, it's enhanced by Trilumis Tech. Really like the look of that. I like the Sony phones and tablets. There's also a Bluetooth keyboard that goes along with that to give it a bit of the Surface Pro feel. which looks really nice, full mechanical keyboard. They've also announced a mid-range Aqua smartphone, which, like all the rest of them, you can chuck in a bucket of water and it'll still work if you're so inclined. Then we had the HTC One M9, which just looks exactly like the One M8 from last year, but all the internals have been upgraded significantly. So you've got, again, the Snapdragon 810 octa-core processor, which seems to be the latest and greatest out there at the moment. It's 3 gig of RAM, a nice battery, and really big improvement on the camera, which has shot up to 20 megapixels from 8 from last year. I'm going to leave the HTC's best announcement, arguably, to Mr. Botwright, because I think he's bringing that up later on, which is, I'll give it a quick one. So it's the Valve Vive VR headset. I'll let Mr. Botwright fill you in on that in a bit. A couple of new mid-range Lumias from Microsoft. I get really decent specs if you're into the Windows Phone experience, and I wouldn't mind trying it out myself. They'll come quite cheaply, so you can get the 3G versions. Well, the prices are in euros, but they're announced at 140 and 160 euros, which is pretty cheap for the spec in question. And that about wraps it up.
It was almost like you went to Spain, but you didn't, Mark.
It was, wasn't it, eh?
Yeah.
Like being in Barcelona.
I just like the idea of a mobile congress
nothing.
where everyone's on their phone.
You just like an idea of what, Ed?
It's just a mobile congress, and just the idea that actually just everyone's on their phone all the time. They're just trying to have like a double-edged conversation.
Yeah,
no, sorry, just hang on a second, and then they turn to...
The whole thing is held by one giant conference call.
Yeah, that's the thing, though. Everybody just walks about looking at their mobiles. Nobody makes eye contact.
Getting mugged.
Yeah.
Apparently.
Yeah, that seems to be the thing at the minute. Lots of backpacks getting nabbed off of journalists with laptops and stuff in. Right, let's move on. We have a pre-production TV, and we've mentioned it a couple of times, Steve, but you've actually now reviewed it. The JS9500 from Samsung. You've had time to measure it. You've had time to actually spend some time with it watching TV. What did you think?
As you've just said, Phil, I'll caveat this by saying it is a pre-production sample, not an actual production sample you'll buy in the shops. So make of that what you will. But personally, picture-wise, it was absolutely superb. It looked really, really good for an LED LCD television. The use of a direct LED backlight meant that there was a completely uniform and even backlight, no clouding, no bright corners, no banding, on camera pans, that kind of stuff. So, because it's a lot deeper than a lot of TVs we've seen. In the past, you see manufacturers try and squeezing those LEDs really close to the panel, and you could see them basically. They've wisely not done that. So it's quite big. I mean, it's 65-inch screen size, curved obviously, but with the depth and the weight of it, it's a big old heavy device. But the picture quality is superb. So nice even backlight. The out-of-the-box measurements for grayscale and colour were all below 3 deep, a delta of 3. So basically,
yeah.
Whether that'll be the case with the production samples, I don't know. But certainly the one I had a very... I mean, basically when I was calibrating, I was just fine-tuning and tweaking here and there. But I doubt you'd even be able to see the difference after... I couldn't really tell the difference after calibration. It wasn't like it was noticeable errors in there to remove in the first place. The processing was absolutely top drawer. I measured the in-game mode input lag 24 milliseconds, which is unbelievably low for any TV, but it's the lowest I've ever seen for a UHD TV, right, Mark? I mean, normally nowhere near that. So that's impressive, although there was a bug in it. In the game mode, there was kind of like a line about 2/3 of the way down the screen. So I'm sure it's just a software bug. As again, this is a pre-production sample, but I've told Samsung about that. A couple of other minor bugs in it that are probably worth mentioning. The One Connect box has got octa-core processing. This isn't really a bug, this is more of an observation, but it's got octa-core processing in it, which means it does get very hot. They put fans in to cool it. But they have to, really. If the sound's off, you can hear the fans, depending on where you put the Connect box. And obviously, you could put it in a cupboard out of the way and this sort of stuff, so there are options, but the fans are quite noisy in that box. Other little things, there was a bit of handshaking issues, but again, it's a pre-production model, so don't worry about that. I did do one annoying thing. Again, I think this is probably just a bug, but every time you turned it off or changed input or changed mode, it defaulted back to smart LED, the local dimming, back to standard. I would recommend using low myself, but it always kept defaulting back to standard after every time you turned it off and turned it on again or changed the input. I think I've told them again about that. I'm sure that's just a bug, but a bit annoying. The one thing, the 3D performance was absolutely stellar in my opinion. I mean, obviously this is an incredibly bright television. I measured it at 400 CDM squared with everything maxed out. I had it at 8 out of 20 for a nice bright punchy picture. But obviously you've got all the extra brightness, which is there for high dynamic range, but is also very handy for 3D. And 3D picture looked superb. No crosstalk, absolutely gorgeous, except for one thing, which was there was frame interpolation on it all the time, even if I turned off. Even if you turn motion plus off, it was still doing it, which I've reported to them as well. Whether that's a bug or whether that's intentional, I don't know. But obviously, I'd much prefer that you have the option not to have that on, because maybe with 3D, some people might think, oh well, it can be handy with 3D. But I like the look of non-frame interpolated footage when it comes to film-based content, and that applies to 3D as well. So that was a bit annoying. Otherwise, though, beautiful picture. Lovely. The 4K panel, bags of detail, great processing, really accurate. Certainly on this sample, good backlight. Whether it's worth $6,000.
Well, you see, this was the big elephant. This was the big elephant in the room that we're going to come to. £6,000.
I mean, this is a statement TV from Samsung, right? This is them saying this is I suppose, what they would probably consider the zenith of LED LCD technology. And this is as good as it's going to get. This is them saying that what we've got here is something that will, presumably, they'll aim to keep current through the next few years as standards are agreed and finalized. You've got HDR, you've got 10-bit video, you've got the wide. I measured the color space. It's 92% DCI. So it was almost DCI, but not quite. You've got all these things in there. It's got the direct LED backlight. It's got the build quality. It's got really good onboard sound, actually, I've got to say as well. It will have their new smart platform Powertize, and the model I had, it was still being in development, so it wasn't the finished version. It's loads and loads of things about it that's very impressive. It is their flagship statement television, but that's an eye-watering price for anything, really. It puts it smack dab up against, I guess, when it finally arrives, LG's OLED, 55-inch 4K OLED.
If it arrives.
Well, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
$6,000 on a telly, even if it is the best of LCD LED tech. Ed, would you buy one? Have you had the money?
If I had the money and my current television failed, and we get a bit more information about 4K broadcast, I mean, I wouldn't rule it out. I have aversions to LCD technology, but that's because I've seen some poor implementations. If this is a very good implementation, I consider it on its own merit, but I'd still be wanting to see the OLED as well. Simple as that, I guess.
I'm assuming in this scenario, I've got the money, and that's money to burn.
Yeah. You're a multi-millionaire in this scenario.
You skipped lunch this week.
Oh. All right. Yeah. Then fine. I'll have two of them. Stick one in the bathroom.
I can see that Optibox with the fans going brilliantly in a semi-damp environment.
I'd pay people to come up with solutions for this, though. I'm a millionaire now.
Of course you would. And there is literally very little that cannot be achieved in interior design and decor if you throw enough money at the problem. So, the sky is the limit.
Yeah, maybe I set this example too high. Yeah. Hodge?
No, not for that kind of money. I mean, it's going to drop like a stone anyway throughout the year. You can guarantee it'll be about half that by the time the year ends. No, I'd want to see some standards and UH and the standards completely finalised and everything finalised for HDR. It probably never happened, but I would be wary of spending that kind of money, and certainly on LCD.
I guess this is what we discussed last week, wasn't it? Are we going to sit on the fence at this moment in time? Well, I guess we would. I think we all said that.
Would. I probably always would. Doing this job, I can afford to sit on the fence. Yes, very.
Yeah, well, you can do that because you've got new TVs come through all the
time.
But
if I was advising a friend, no, and even if they had $6,000 to spend, I'd say no. Wait.
It must be said there are many, many items of technology I would sooner have over a £6,000 television.
Yeah.
So, at the very least, a $6,000 record player's got a lifespan of infinity.
I was wondering when you were going to bring vinyl into this argument. Didn't it take you that long? So, talking about upcoming reviews, what have you got, Ed? New month.
Well, this is as of today. The Tangent X5 BT Spectrum loudspeaker has gone onto the site. Interesting one, that, in so much as we've already looked at parts of it before, because it shares an amp plate with the LTAX Monitor 3 BT. But I was persuaded to have a look at both of them, because whereas the LTAX has been adapted for it, that Tangent has basically been designed for it. It's a bit more expensive, but it is, I mean, obviously beauty is subjective, but it's a hell of a lot better looking. And it's quite interesting to sort of being able to compare and contrast the two. And the Tangent, it's a very, very well implemented, very well thought out product. Then we are firmly jumping the shark in AVForums terms. The leading home cinema technology website in the UK has invited me to review a record player. I'm not going to give away anything more than that about what it is, but it's hopefully, provided that people read it and enjoy it, it's going to be one of a series of reviews where we're going to look at some, different levels and getting back into vinyl. So there's very specific requirements for the record players we're going to look at. I'm going to explain more in this first review. Hopefully you'll think it's worthwhile. Do comment on the rest of it if you do, and feel free to ask questions, and we'll take it from there. I'm finishing off this clutch of what are technically February reviews with a pair of Audio-Technica headphones, which arrived completely unexpectedly at the Bristol show, and was listening to them, and I thought, actually, do you know what? This might be worth talking about. And then for when March starts in Edland, there is a review of the entry-level Acoustic Energy loudspeakers in 5.1, and all bits by Acoustic Energy in that range. So a cost-effective full-size speaker package, which I'm sure you'll agree is a rare and beautiful thing in 2015. So I am looking forward to that. There'll be hopefully another record player and other bits. I've got two things I am aiming to get in for March. I've got to make sure they're in the house before I talk about them. One of which is, I think, going to be really exciting.
Only one of them?
Well, the other one I don't know all about yet, but one of them hasn't been reviewed in this configuration in the UK, and it's a proper AV thing. It's not me messing about with vinyl or headphones or anything like that. Proper piece of AV equipment, and a very cool one. Okay, and Mark, what do you have coming up this month?
I've got the first one out of the gates would be the Amazon Fire HDX 8.9 tablet review, which is a lovely little tablet despite all the Amazon customization. It's fantastic. I've got an LG G-Pad 10.1, which I'm not as keen on. I've got a mini PC on a stick. It's an HDMI. Just plug it into your display, and you've got a Windows 8.1 PC. And then I've got about 30,000 Android boxes arriving from Hong Kong. So that's going to be interesting. Yeah.
So you've got to build the product when it arrives.
yeah. I don't know. This is a whole new ball game. So let's see how this goes.
And presumably Samsung are getting a bit edgy and sending you emails asking, come on, Mark, we've got an entire 2015 lineup.
No, it's Steve that's doing it this year.
Oh, okay. Steve is Captain Samsung.
Steve's getting all the pre-production stuff this year. Because what have you got coming this week, Steve?
I've got the JS9, but they're taking away the JS9 500 and replacing it with the JS 9000. Which, looking at the specs, is basically the same television, except, and this is maybe a big difference, who knows, it doesn't have a direct LED backlight, it has edge lighting. Otherwise, it looks like the specs are pretty much identical. So it'll be interesting to see how effective the backlight is when they're not using a direct array. Because I've got to say, that alone, I'm not saying it makes it worth $6,000, but certainly, I was watching Wolf Hall. Now, I don't know if anyone else has been watched Wolf Hall, but it's photography. You like this, Phil, because they did in nighttime scenes. They're kind of lighting it, making it look like it looked like it's lit purely by candles. And there's a lot of very deep blacks, lots of stuff hiding in the shadows. I think when it first started broadcasting, people were moaning that they couldn't see anything. It's like, well, get your television set up properly. That's what you should do. Because if you've got it set up properly, I'm watching it on the Kuro, for example, I thought it looked absolutely gorgeous. And I thought that would be a hell of a test for any local dimming system, because this is, and I've got to say the JS 9500 looked superb and really delivered the goods on Wolf Hall. So it'll be interesting to see how effective this will be, without the direct backlight.
And what else have you got?
Since Ed was bragging, I have the Denon X7200 AVR, and this will be the first review of it in the UK. Boom.
All right.
Drops the mic.
Okay. Drops the mic. Competition.
Well, clearly, apparently, it now is.
I just had a David Cameron moment there, Steve. The whole weekly wipe thing where he just walks off, just says his bit, and then just walks off camera. Well, seeing as I'm back to reviewing, I'm back to the age-old thing of I don't want to really give the kit back. So I'm hanging on to these XTZs for as long as
you don't care who knows.
You always have a go at us if we try and do that.
Do as I say, not do as I do, isn't it?
They're going back. They have to go back, but I have tried to make the testing period.
Do you keep hiding under the table when the courier knocks?
No, we haven't gotten to that stage yet, Ed. It'll come at that stage. But in all seriousness, I've got the XTZs. Hopefully get them written up very soon. I've been really impressed with them, and I've used them with 2 AVRs now. So we've got the Denon X3100, which is bottom to mid-range AVR. Really impressed with the Denon stuff. I have to say they have been listening, Steve. Maybe not to what we've been saying on the podcast, but they've certainly been listening to the market in terms of AVRs are just too complicated to use. Well, these AVRs, they'll hold your hand and take you through and show you everything, and things are color coded and really made simple. And I've got to say the back panel as well is not intimidating. Certainly not on the 3100. You've got two component, 3 composite, and the rest is HDMI, a few analog inputs, and that's about it.
Yeah, no, I've been really impressed with the way that Denon and Marantz have approached the idea of simplifying back panels, simplifying remotes, having a well-designed and intuitive to use menu system, taking you through the whole setup process, color coding their speaker terminals, putting them in a single line so you can access them from above easily. Yeah, lots of little things that they've thought of, and these are the little things that make a difference. And if you're new to AVRs, this is the kind of thing that can really help you make the decision to take that first step into multi-channel audio. Because a lot of people, I'm sure, are put off by the sheer, some of these AVRs, these massive beasts with these huge back panels covered in inputs. It must terrify anyone who's new to that kind of thing. Yeah,
I mean, I was just looking at the back of the Onkyo that I have in the room. It's a 5007 from about 4 years ago, maybe 5 year old now. X flagship receiver, and you look at the back of that panel and you think, where did I start?
Yeah, I bet we needed those 14 S-video inputs, didn't it?
Yeah, well, not quite that bad, but just speaker terminals, just for the height channels and everything else, and that was 5 years ago, when you had the Odyssey first came on the market with their thing, and then DTS, Neo X.
I'll stop you there. Height channels, I think we can go back 25 or 30 years if you want to look at some of the Yamahas that first had them.
Yes.
It's been a ridiculously long time for you.
Credit where credit's due on that one, I think.
Yes. But anyway, I'm really impressed with the Denon stuff, so those reviews will be coming up soon, and XTZ, I might try and make that last another couple of weeks. I've got to say they really are good, and we've been banging on about Dolby Atmos and stuff for the last few months, Steve, on the podcast, and saying, do you really need it? Well, if you've got properly set up speakers like these are, and they're all tonally balanced correctly, and they all do the, you have a sound that goes from the centre all the way around the back of you and back to the front again, but there's a degree of height about it as well without having height channels. Do you need Dolby Atmos? That's been my big question, and I've been really happy with just one subwoofer and 5 speakers testing them, and as you know, I've normally got 4 subwoofers in that room, so that tells you about the performance of this package. Really good. So anyway, that wraps up what's coming up this month for review, and obviously there's more to add to that list, and we'll tell you about it from week to week as we motor through March. I still can't believe we are into March, but never mind. It's my birthday this month, by the way, people.
Happy 50th.
Hint, hint. I'll ignore that one, Ed, and let's move on. We've got games news next. Right, let's move on to games news. Valve VR headsets now. Mark did allude to this in his MWC roundup, but what's it all about, Mark?
Yeah, well, this is more news from the Mobile World Congress. Basically, that it's HTC who will be manufacturing the VR headset for Valve. It's going to be, as Mark said, the Vive. Retail version hopefully will have higher resolution than what the developer version, which at the moment will have screen for each eye, 1200 by 800 pixels, refresh rate of equivalent 90 frames per second, all the usual things you'd expect in there, gyro sensor, accelerometer, and laser position sensor for head tracking, which they claim will give them to within 1/10 of a degree. Perhaps the most interesting news of it was that rather than just a kind of standard headset where you're going to be stationary, you will also have the option to use a pair of Steam VR base stations. I haven't really gone into any great detail about this, but it'll create a little kind of virtual environment through which you can actually move around about 15 by 15 feet.
15 by 15 feet?
Well, you know what? It doesn't sound much, but compared to the idea of just being totally stationary.
It's bigger than my lounge. I'd walk into a wall before I ran out of range.
That might be a bit of a hazard. That is one of the things I think certainly in British homes you might have a problem with.
But British Homes, it's all anything of this nature. It even goes down to aerobics videos. Not that I participate in them, but if my wife gets one, fundamentally,
why were you watching them, Ed?
Because I'm sat there trying to stop my son from like rugby tackling my wife. But no, it's like if you actually try and perform an American workout video in a UK lounge, you better actually be able to do it whilst climbing over a sofa. It's impossible to do, and it looks like it's the same with this. So, this is
the problem that I think some people also had with things like the Wii, with anything kind of motion sensors in British homes, where they say. Particularly with the Kinect, Microsoft's Kinect, a lot of people had major problems with not being able to get far enough away from the camera. A lot of people had to use a little third-party peripheral just to stop it kind of trying to zoom too far into the room. They had to, shorten the distance. But also, HTC are making controllers that can be tracked, so they're designed to be versatile. So obviously, that kind of opens things up with regards what kind of games can be played on the system, although the first kind of little tech demo type thing called Job Simulator, perhaps I think it just shows a bloke putting ketchup on a steak.
Job Simulator?
Yes.
So like you pretend like you got a job.
Yeah.
Which in your case would be novel, I should think.
I'll soon count on the unemployment figures.
But it looks just like a kind of basic proof of concept to show that it can track everything. But this will, the time frame for it shows that it'll be one of the first to market. It's developer editions out in spring 2015, so sometime soon, and they claim in stores for holiday 2015. It's still a bit vague, but at least it's this year.
I assume, when they say holiday, they mean Christmas, so the end of the year, maybe next.
Yeah,
I can scarcely contain myself.
Is this the one that's got Dolby Atmos, Mark?
No, there's been no mention of that.
That was a different one. I can't remember what that one was now.
Do you have like little speakers on like little rods above the VR unit hanging over your head? Well, if it's Atmos, you have to have overhead speakers.
No, it's all done in the headphones.
No, I'm only kidding. Right, okay.
Well, to be honest, I was a little bit confused there when Hodge said a PC on a stick. My first thought was
really useful.
Like a selfie stick. I just thought, what the hell are they doing?
Well, that was why I asked a question about the curve when he said curved on both sides. I thought, well, surely a curved phone is by definition curved on both sides, isn't it?
It's not.
So my imagination, what you meant was it was curved one way on one side and curved the other way on the other, which was bloody uncomfortable to hold from what I could work out.
It's like two bananas stuck back to back.
Yeah.
It's a bit flatter than that.
I think what we're proving here is that we are not natural candidates for a design agency. But
AVForums podcast at the cutting edge of design.
So what, for one of those phones, you could buy an entire container ship of bananas.
Go on.
What would the point be?
I don't know. Maybe you've got
I bought a ton of fruit instead. Yes.
I thought you were going to say something.
The weakest Bond villain in the world.
Banana Man.
Yeah. World's supply of bananas, then I hold them to ransom.
Come the 8th revolution, I'm going to be all right. You lot, I'll be laughing then.
Until the monkeys take over.
No, that's what I'm saying. But when they take over, I'll bribe them.
It won't last long, will it? It's not going to last too long.
Container ship full of bananas. Well, that's a reasonable length of time. Enough time to work out plan B.
They're perishable, though. That's the thing. You'd have to have a plan B when the monkeys take over.
Just take them off, won't they? To be honest.
You have a lot of disgruntled monkeys on your hands after a week.
And you might have a load of spiders as well.
And it's
Maybe
really
that's how
hard
Planet
to make
the Apes
booze out of them.
starts.
I want biscuits, Steve.
I missed that bit.
I thought you were going to say something sensible, Steve. Like, for the price of one of these phones, you could have a full Dolby Atmos setup at home or something like that. I wasn't expecting bananas.
And where did you get your prices from?
This is on the wholesale market. Clearly, this is not going to be what you pay in a greengrass. This is going to be trade.
Oh, you've got connections now.
Futures.
I think Aeons will quickly get you quite a lot of bananas.
Steve Withers, AV reviewer and costermonger to the stars.
I think way out projections, to be honest.
So is that games news?
That's games news.
Banana news.
And banana news. And monkey news. It's monkey news.
Right, Steve, what's at the cinema?
Well, at the cinema, there was Focus, which I actually reviewed last week. There was also the second best Marigold Hotel, Exotic Marigold Hotel, which is a dreadful title because it makes something, well, not quite as good as the one before then. There was also a Jennifer Lopez movie called, I think, The Boy Next Door. So those two I wasn't particularly keen on seeing. The film I really wanted to see... Oh, so you
didn't see the thing with Jennifer Lopez in?
No.
It's got, in that case...
It looked appalling.
Can I give a spoiler alert?
Do what you like to it. I like it.
Well, I haven't seen it, but it has got one of the most ridiculous, as I understand it, where Jennifer Lopez is handed a copy of the Iliad, which, in case we're loose on this, is an oral poem written allegedly by a single man called Homer, sometime about 2,000 years or before Christ, and she's handed a copy of the Iliad, and the bloke goes, "It's a first edition." Yeah, I'm going to put it up there with my signed Bible.
My first edition of the Bible, it's signed by God and Jesus.
So obviously I have no intention of seeing the rest of the film, but
hang on, Steve. God and Jesus, one of the writers.
Well, no, I've just written a 600-page book on it.
Well, they recited kind of.
They were what? Sorry, Mark?
They kind of, should we say, gave it to other people to write.
It was dictated.
Yeah, it's like Barbara Carter.
So it's a biography rather than an autobiography, is what we're saying here. Ghost written by Jeffrey Archer.
It was
probably.
the Cliff
They all
Notes.
are.
I thought it was a work of fiction, though.
It is.
So, yes, we had the second best Exotic Marigold Hotel, which obviously only got made because the first one made a ton of money. The reviews haven't been too bad, but it wasn't particularly appealing. The Jennifer Lopez movie, which just looks appalling, and I think Ed's just confirmed that. Refocus, which I'd already reviewed, so I'd already seen that. And the film I wanted to see, It Follows, the horror film that looks quite interesting, the one about, well, what looks like basically an STD ghost. That was not in my local cinema, really annoyingly, so I couldn't see it.
Oh,
so
that's terrible. I think you need to complain. Who's your local cinema? We'll say it now.
And you know what's really annoying? I just sit through adverts for that film for the last month. So you think they could at least have decency to show it?
Nah.
Trailered it to me. It's really annoying when they do that. It's like, instead of which, half the screens were full of 50 Shades of Flippin' Grey. So,
which I noticed you haven't given us a review of.
Yes, I have.
Oh, you have? Shit, sorry.
Yeah. It was that memorable, Ed.
Yeah.
No, you're right. I was.
You switched off.
And it's when Ed was having his foot X-rayed, I think.
Look, if I didn't hear it, it didn't happen. There's a whole tree falls in the woods business, okay?
So this week.
So anyway, that I've still got to say that's a lame excuse for not going to the cinema. That the film wasn't showing that you wanted to see. You could have went and seen another film.
Well, yeah, but I didn't want to see the other two films either.
But that's not the point of reviewing. The point of reviewing is that you go and review the film. You don't just go to what you think is going to be good.
No, true. But
I didn't want a bootbox wireless speaker in my house, but I still did it.
You gave it a badge.
It was good. I wouldn't have one there.
Yeah, and what they couldn't be asked to go to the cinema this weekend, so there was no review.
Right, so if you could have just opened with that and we'd have been done with it.
Quicker, yeah, would have been a lot quicker. But anyway, but also did at least explain what is at the cinema if you do want to go and see the second best Exotic Marigold Hotel or The Boy Next Door or It Follows, assuming it's playing at the cinema near you, and Focus, which I have seen and isn't too bad. It's a fun night at the movies if you fancy that. This week,
bananas instead.
Have a banana. Yeah, always an option.
I look forward to the porn spoof of It Follows. It Follows Through. It's going to be horrendous, but
actually, I think looking at the trailer, it would be quite easy to make a porn spoof of It Follows.
It's easy to make a porn spoof of anything.
Yeah,
except 50 Shades of Grey. You'd actually have to like.
Where were we? Oh yeah, so opening this Friday, we have Chappie, which is the new film from Neil Blomkamp about a sentient robot, which I've got to say I am going to go and see, and does look quite good. Unfinished Business, a comedy, and I use that term loosely, with Vince Vaughn, which I'll probably also go and see if it's playing. And the film I really want to see this weekend, and I bet you it isn't playing at my cinema, because it basically caters to all the idiots, unfortunately, is Still Alice, which is the film that Julianne Moore won Best Actor.
Where is your cinema?
Swindon.
All right.
Says it all, really.
That explains it.
My apologies to anyone living in Swindon.
I thought you were talking about Bath, and I'm thinking Bath's a major city.
No. Bath's fine. It's just Swindon, yeah. Still Alice, which I do want to see, which is the movie that Julianne Moore won the Academy Award for Best Actress for, where she plays a woman with Alzheimer's, early onset Alzheimer's, and that does look very good.
Right, so let's move on. Blu-rays released next week. Quickly, Steve.
Yeah, next week we've got The Imitation Game, which is the film with Benedict Cumberbatch about Alan Turing, which I thought was absolutely superb when I saw it at cinema. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Very moving, very interesting, and with a great performance from Benedict Cumberbatch. That comes out on Blu-ray on Monday, so worth checking out if you haven't seen it. 71, which is the film where the soldier gets stuck behind, well, I'm not going to say enemy lines, but stuck behind lines in Belfast in 1971, obviously, as the title might suggest. Haven't seen it, but it does look very interesting, and it is, it got a good review from Kaz, so I think it might be worth checking out. Ouija, a horror film, which I have not seen, and know very little about, other than I assume it involves a Ouija board. And The 100-Foot Journey with Helen Mirren. Anyway, she's on the 100-foot journey. And is it good?
It was good. Yeah, I really enjoyed
you saw it at the cinema?
I don't know when I saw it. Or maybe someone told me about it and I felt like I'd see it.
I'd be gobsmacked if that was something.
It's about an Indian restaurant, isn't it, in
yes,
Paris?
France.
Yeah, France, yeah. Opening up. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Actually looks quite good, especially if you like food.
It might be good. Oh.
You should write a review.
Well, get Mark to write a review based upon what he thinks someone told him.
Yeah, but he is a chef, so the food side would be all right.
Yeah, I'll deal with that.
That's true.
Or at least he tells us he was a chef.
It's one of my clever
How many gold stars did you have, Mark?
None.
Oh, right, fine.
Whatever happened to the Mark Recipes spot then?
Everyone hated it, so it was dropped.
And that's it for Blu-ray releases for next Monday.
Right, okay, so let's move on very quickly. Reboots, remakes, prequels and sequels. Has Hollywood literally lost the plot? And the reason why we're coming to that is obviously Blomkamp, Neil, doing an Alien film possibly. You were talking about this morning, Steve. We discussed it briefly, and basically what I said was, Alien 1979, can we move on now? Can we do something original?
Well, we can't do anything original. Just on a wider level, there are only, isn't it? There's only six stories and 5 songs in existence, and all you can ever do is rehash them.
Is that like the basis of the hero's journey? That the journey home, the journey to rescue somebody, the journey to whatever.
Yeah, and then you can be chased by a monster, and then all you do is vary the monster, and you can have a love story with either a happy or a sad ending.
With the monster.
Well, I guess if you want to mix it up a bit.
Someone drilling in the background.
Yeah,
someone is drilling in the background of my house. It's not me. Well, not least. I don't do DIY. Unfortunately, my neighbour is going at it hammer and tongs with a power drill. And he's quite big and intimidating. So if he wants to go at it with a big drill, he's welcome to. I apologise to anyone.
Probably best not to annoy him while he's got a drill in his hand.
No, absolutely. He's a nice enough bloke, but he's really, really big. So, I just let him crack on with things. He's fine.
Anyway, Alien.
The reason I raised this point was because, as Phil's just said, Neil Blomkamp has announced that he's doing a sequel to Alien. No one's quite sure, because what happened was about a couple of months ago, he leaked some pre-production concept art of his plans for an Alien sequel online when he said, I'm not going to do the film now, but this is sort of the lines we were going along. And it had things like an acid-scarred Hicks in it and this sort of stuff, suggesting it's actually a sequel to Aliens, and it's going to ignore Alien 3 and Alien Resurrection, which I think is great, because one of the big problems I got with Alien 3, one of the many problems I got with that film, is that in the first 2 minutes it kills Hicks. And
spoilers!
I don't mind spoiling Alien 3 because it's shit. It basically negates the whole of Aliens, which is like a great movie, and that really annoyed me. So if someone can make a film that carries on from Aliens and gives us an ending, I think that we ought to, and also Alien Resurrection was appalling. So give the Alien franchise an ending it deserves. That would be great. And Neil Blomkamp is a director who's proved himself very capable of handling A effects and B monsters, and can create something with a bit of emotion to it. So that sounds quite good. But it did get me thinking. Right, so we've got a sequel.
Yeah. That sounds good, but the Star Wars prequels sounded good as well, Steve.
Yeah, true. And now we've got Star Wars sequels coming. We've got a sequel to Prometheus, which was a prequel to Alien. We've now got a sequel to Alien. We've got Fox rebooting the Fantastic Four about 4 years after they did a Fantastic Four movie. What else has been rebooted? We've had James Bond rebooted recently. Although that's an example of something that's been going on since 1962, and still going strong. So, can work, Phil. Can work. It just looks like Hollywood's completely lost. A sequel to Blade Runner just been confirmed with Harrison Ford. If all Harrison Ford needs to do now is do another Jack Ryan movie, and you'll have done he'll be doing all of his new old franchises again. Oh, they're doing a reboot of Indiana Jones, I believe, Raiders of the Lost Ark, possibly with Chris Pratt. It's just got to the point where you're thinking, Is there no one left in Hollywood who's actually got an original thought in their head?
Yeah, well, there are, but then also because of the ridiculous amounts of money people are spending on making films at the moment, risk aversion has kicked back in. So rather than take a punt on something new, you just you warm up some leftovers and hope for the best.
Isn't it a point of having a mix of different things as well, though? Like commission something new, then try and find something that you think will be a solid kind of banker of a film, something that people already know, and so it's just easy to go back to things like reboots. It's
a bit like the game industry works, isn't it, Matt? Really?
Yeah, exactly. There's a certain kind of diversification there. So you want a certain amount of risk, but also you want things that you seem to be almost guaranteed through sequels and prequels and that kind of thing to get money in through.
Yeah, I mean that would be the logical conclusion. When you make some some smaller budgeted original stuff, and also pop in your tentpole movies. We know big budget tentpole, but Hollywood's got to ask itself a question, which is why are films so expensive? Because there are films being made now that regularly cost more than Cleopatra did, and that's allowing for inflation. So Cleopatra was insanely expensive in 1960. It was the most expensive film of all time by miles at the time, and now regularly films like Pirates of the Caribbean, at World's End, and or the next Avatar movie or the Hobbit movies are costing more than Cleopatra, and that was where they built half of bloody Rome, for God's sake. So you're kind of wondering, why are films costing so much money now? Because these are ridiculous levels of cost and expenditure going on that just doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, how can anyone justify spending $200 to $300 million on a single film? When James Cameron's talking about spending $1 billion on 3 Avatar movies.
And making them in China.
Yeah, he's making them in China. So basically he's getting the Chinese government to fund a lot of it, which is quite clever of him, I suppose. But it's just insane levels of spending. And you're thinking, well, why? Why are they so... I mean, why are movies exponentially increasing in cost when compared to inflation?
I don't know, because you're asking 3 other people that don't make movies for a living.
I'm pretty sure if you ask people to make the movies, they don't know either.
If we looked at, I suppose we need to look at the alternatives. When was the last time? I mean, Steve, you watch a lot more films than I do. When was the last time that something that didn't cost very much to make was a proper box office sledgehammer? I mean, thinking all the way back to something like American Graffiti, which was made for like 8p.
What was the found footage one? The one about the witch,
Blair Witch.
That was probably the last one where it cost absolute peanuts and brought in tens of millions. It was the same when Star Wars was a massive hit back in 77, and then 78, 79, 80, 81. I mean, how many space movies, sci-fi movies, Battlestar Galacticas and all that kind of thing suddenly became popular? I mean, Star Trek, for heaven's sake, we're talking about Spock at the beginning of the podcast. Star Trek the movie would not have happened if Star Wars wasn't a huge box office hit. So I think it's always been there. I just think nowadays it's a case of nobody wants to risk their money, and it's a business at the end of the day. So I guess there has to be a strong reason for them to back a franchise or a possible new franchise or something like that, and then just look at who have tried to do that in the recent past and have failed.
Yeah, it's certainly true that there's been attempts to do something a bit different, and they have ended up losing a ton of money. But yeah, I just think someone's got to take a risk at some point and try and make something that's going to be... I mean, it can happen. I mean, if you look at, I guess the example everyone uses is Inception, which was a fairly intelligent and different kind of movie, but it was still on a very big budget, and it did really well successfully at the box office. So you can do it. I mean, a lot of
bankable names in there as well.
Just think mainly because obviously it's the Hans Zimmerling, but how did it Interstellar do?
Not very well.
Okay, it did 600 and something million worldwide,
right,
but not as well as it was expected to do.
Considering all the hype that had gone before it, I think it didn't really do. I think it washed its face, didn't it? Really.
Yeah, it would have made its money back basically, but that's about it. I mean, it broke even. I'll probably do okay, but it was certainly, it wasn't as well received as people were expecting it to be, and I think that's just because I think Nolan's lost it a bit since Inception and The Dark Knight. I mean, I think The Dark Knight Rises, everyone generally agrees now, was a bit rubbish. It didn't make a lot of sense, and Interstellar, suffered from being frankly really boring, which is a cardinal sin, and stupid in places as well, and really dumb in places. So,
and then we get something like Gardens of the Galaxy, and I will keep saying gardens. but look at something like that, which was a fun movie, and something which was original-ish. Yes, it borrowed for this, that, and the next, but it kind of flew in the face of what else was going on at the cinema at the time, and was successful, and was the first film that I've watched in a long time where I thoroughly enjoyed it and thought it was great fun.
I mean, I don't know. The other thing is that, regrettably, for as long as what's the hit rate on successful? The hit rate on successful sequels, it's got to probably still be above 50%. So for as long as it is, people are going to keep hedging their bets and trying it. It's going to take 3 in a row or something similar to just tank. And it
depends which sequel, though. Surely, because the diminishing returns. Like first sequel, fine, that's great, but kind of from number 3 onwards, there's such a massive drop off.
Unless it's the Fast and the Furious films, which defy all
defy all expectations.
Well, yeah, I mean, you say that about Fast and Furious, but then, and we've been moaning about it in this podcast, is 50 Shades of Grey. Just look how much moolah that has brought in. There's going to be a sequel. No matter
51 Shades of Grey?
And no matter how unworthy we think it is, it's washed its face in more. It's been really, really successful.
Well, except for that showing where that woman lost control of all of her bodily functions and they had to close the cinema. You didn't see that in the news. It was just it's in some ways it's too much detail, and in certain ways it's just maddeningly light on. But yeah. And on that bombshell.
I don't know where it goes.
Phil, it's made 500 million so far, almost 500 million.
Yeah, well, that's what I meant. It's done mega money, and there's just no logic behind that.
If I produced that film, I'd wet myself too with that kind of box office thing. But we end up going back to the same things we said before on numerous podcasts, which is one, they're getting because Ed said they're becoming more and more risk averse because of the sheer cost of making films these days, and all the really good stuff's on TV. All the really interesting, original, challenging stuff is on television these days. Yep, it is, and we'll close on this one because the series 3 premiered on Friday. We're recording this on the Monday. Of House of Cards. Anybody? I'm still catching up with season 2, so I haven't seen. I'm 5 episodes in. So my wife is loving it thoroughly. I just the way that times have fallen, and I've not really watched any of them. It'll be as it's something that Netflix made. I figure it won't go anywhere in a hurry. I'll get around to it one of these days. I'm in the middle of loving Fortitude on Sky. I think that's bloody marvellous.
Yeah, I think it is.
Is that the one with Gambon?
Yes.
All right. Okay. I haven't seen that one yet. I don't think it's on any of the services I can't pay for
right now.
Is it? Okay. Right.
It's really good.
Is it 5 episodes on there now?
All right. Okay. Cool.
That's well worth it.
Right. Enough of this chaos. That is it for this week on the AVForums podcast. My thanks to Steve Withers. I'm laughing at the superior intellect. Mark Hodgkinson.
Isn't ready.
Mark Botwright.
Oh, sorry. I thought that was Hodge saying he isn't ready.
I'm ready now.
Oh.
Hang on, those aren't quotes, are they?
Yeah. No.
All right. Jeez. Yeah, Hodge comes back and then it just all goes to hell. Right, Mark Hodgkinson.
Pardon? Scientists have always been pawns of the military.
It's well worth waiting on. Mark Botwright.
Full impulse power.
And Ed Selley.
Live long and prosper.
Here. Don't forget, you can follow us on Twitter and Facebook, bookmark avforums.com for the latest reviews, news and video. Plus, why not leave us a rating on iTunes if you enjoyed this show? I'm Phil Hinton. Thanks very much for listening, and we'll see you again next Wednesday.